Let's see how you can very quickly and easily forecast your data in Power BI. I'm going to be working with the AdventureWorks sample for this demo. I've got a simple line chart here that just shows the sales amount across a few months of a few years. You can do this for weeks, days, years as well. I'm just using months to keep the visual simple. To forecast our data, I'll come up here to the visualizations pane and click on the magnifying glass icon. In the options that appear, I'm going to come down here to forecast and toggle that to on. And with that, we have our forecast. The black line represents predicted values, while the gray area is our boundary, our upper and lower bounds. This is already looking pretty good, but to take this a step further, I'm going to expand the forecast option here. Forecast length is how many points into the future you wish to predict. So since we have months here, this is 10 months into the future. I'll set this to 12. Ignore the last is pretty useful. It's basically how many months into the past you wish to ignore. Ignore the last is pretty useful. You can use this to ignore some data points that you've already got. So if I set this to 6, it's going to ignore the last 6 months. How does this help you? Basically, it shows you what the model is predicting against actual values. So you can use this to get an idea of how well the model performs. Now, if you look at the predictions, they kind of seem the same over the months we have. So it looks like it's cycling over. Now, if you look at the predictions, something does not look quite right. It seems like it's showing me the same values over a few months. This happens because of seasonality. Seasonality essentially refers to a complete cycle of peaks and dips. So for example, if you have high summer sales and low winter sales year over year, and you have monthly data points like in this case, then the seasonality will be 12 in the 1 year data cycle. You can usually get away with leaving this empty. However, if you find that your prediction does not look quite right, try playing around with this a bit. For this case, since we are using months and there are 12 months in a year, I'm going to set this to 12. And we should get something that looks a little better. Yep. If you were using days, you could try 365 to represent the year. And if you were using weeks, 52, since there are 52 weeks in a year. Finally, confidence interval. This basically represents the probability or chance that the value is going to fall in the boundary that you have here. Setting this to a lower value will shorten the boundary. Setting this to a higher value will widen it. And there you go. That's how you can very easily forecast your data with Power BI. I would suggest leaving the ignore last to 0 for your final models, as that is going to give a more accurate and better prediction. Ignore last is mainly useful when you are building your dashboard. Okay, let's have a look at some of the formatting options. So if I expand forecast line, I can change the color of the line and the boundary using this option. So I'll set this to red, and you can see the line and the boundary changes to a shade of red. Style, that's basically the type of line you want. So you can set that to dashed or dotted. I'm going to leave it to dashed, and you can adjust the transparency should you wish. Next, we have confidence band, which basically just allows you to choose the representation for the boundary area. So fill, you can see line does not shade in the area between the upper and lower bounds, and none removes the upper and lower bound completely. I personally like fill, so I'll leave it to that. Tooltip title. If you hover over the predicted values, you'll see 3 data points in the tooltip that appears. There's forecast one, upper bound, and lower bound. Using tooltip title, you can adjust what is written for forecast one. So if I change this to forecast, you'll see that forecast one change to forecast. And that's it. Something to note, this does not use any sort of machine learning or AI to predict your data. It's basically exponential smoothing. Caveats: this only works with line charts. The x-axis must be in datetime format or date format. Dates in text format will not work. So you must ensure that whatever field you're using for the x-axis is set as a date or datetime data type. And the chart can only have one line. There are a few methods to have multiple lines and to use more complex methods for forecasting, but we'll look at that in a future tutorial. Links to the written version of this tutorial is available in the description below, along with the link to my Patreon page where you can get the .ppix file should you need it. Like and subscribe if you found this useful, and comment with what you'd like to see next. I'll catch you in the next one.